Classical astrology is a special term that is used in two different directions. In its primary sense, it is used to refer to the period belonging to the Hellenistic period, the Roman period and the period of the early Byzantine Empire. In this sense, it can be identified with the word ancient astrology. In the secondary sense, it has been used since the beginning of astrology, especially in the Western world, as a general expression of all schools of astrology belonging to the periods before the 1700s. Hellenistic astrology, medieval astrology, Renaissance astrology are also included in this statement. In this book, when it is called classical astrology, the secondary meaning of this expression is taken as the basis. As I mentioned in the introduction, the reason I prefer the expression classical astrology is that the equivalent of the word classical in the dictionary is a work that has not lost its value even though a lot of time has passed over it or procedures that have been left over and have become a tradition. Classical astrology is divided into three distinct periods: Latin, Greek and Latin, and five. The first, which appeared in the period following the discovery of horoscope astrology, covering everything written in Greek and Latin. It is Hellenistic astrology or ancient Greek astrology that was noticeably influential until the 18th century. The second is medieval astrology, which refers to the development of Greek astrology by Arab, Persian and Jewish astrologers and its adoption by the medieval Latins. The third is the Renaissance astrology or traditional astrology, which lasted from the 1500s to about the 1700s, when medieval knowledge began to be reformed. In the course of the seminars, MS 1. Century Manilius, starting from ancient Hellenistic astrology, the effects of Dorotheus of Sidon from the period, Claudius Ptolemy, Vetus Valens, Julius Firmicus Mytanus, Paulus Alexandrinus, names such as techniques that are used, Tabula, Omar Tiberiades, Abu Ali al-Hayat, and Abu Mar, al-Gindi, al-Kabiov, al-Kabitis, Zail, Hali ibn Rachel, al-Biruni, Ibn Ezra, Guido Bonatus, with the school using the techniques of medieval astrology, the names of the techniques and views of Renaissance astrology, which is a school of names such as Johannes Sner, Jean-Baptiste Morin, Jerome Cardan, Henry Coley, William Ramsay and William Lilly, will also be included. Within this wide range, medieval astrology techniques will take a predominant place. Why should classical astrology methods be learned first? Classical astrology consists of knowledge whose roots go back thousands of years. Modern astrology, on the other hand, covers the information that has been formed since the last century. When viewed according to the historical development process, the progress from the old to the new is logical. The starting point for astrology is to learn the classical astrology methods. If we learn astrology in a sound and methodical way, we can comfortably build on this solid foundation the advanced techniques and modern techniques that we will learn later. By acquiring classical knowledge, we have decamped to the source of all the techniques we use today, and among the intensity of today's new trends and psychological concepts, we will not lose predictive techniques that can be based on a good analysis of the map, which is the basis of astrology. I don't think we should learn classical techniques and leave modern techniques aside. On the contrary, it is necessary to make use of classical texts describing the subtleties of the astrology tradition and take them as a basis, and skillfully put modern techniques on top of them. I completely agree with the words of the American astrologer Robert Hand. Wise innovations based on a complete technical and philosophical understanding of traditions will allow astrology to evolve more like a science and, over time, become more successful in terms of what it needs to do. An innovation that is ignorant of tradition only creates a change without progress. Holding on to the past will leave astrology exactly where it was in the 1700s, isolated, intellectually interrupted, and at a point where, whatever its true value, it is becoming increasingly insignificant. Differences between classical astrology and decadent astrology. I will try to decipher the general approach and technical differences between classical astrology and modern astrology in articles. My goal in doing this is not to decipher which one works more correctly, but only to determine the distinctive differences between them. The most important difference between classical astrology and modern astrology is that modern astrology takes the whole map as something that only interests the map owner, since it rather highlights the psychology of the decipherer. However, from the point of view of classical astrology, all the instruments in a person's birth chart are not only related to his personality or what he has. Because he is the horoscope in ASC, the ruler of ASC, whose indicators belong to the owner of the map. 1. The planets settled at home, in particular, the one that stands closest to the ASC, determine as. Planets that angle to the ASC degree also have an impact on personality and how personality is used. In other words, planets other than these instruments describe other people and subjects in the life of the map owner. It is not about his personality. Predictions are also made based on this. Because classical astrology believes that accurate predictions cannot be made without a good determination of who is who or what is what on a map. Classical methods focus on objective facts, not psychological developments. After all, when a significant impact occurs, it is important to foresee on whom or in whose life this impact occurs. That is why the study, description, of houses occupies a very important place in classical astrology. For example, 7. When it comes to the house, classical astrology, as in modern astrology, is not interested in how the owner of the chart looks at their bilateral relationship or marriage, or what kind of person they want in front of them. Classical methods lead us to follow a path related to this house as follows. 1. Is this person going to get married? 2. If the answer is yes, what kind of person will she marry? 3. How will the marriage develop? Will the relationship go well? Will the person be happy? For what will be the consequences of marriage? If there is a bad turn of events, who will cause it? Modern astrology treats the chart as a whole. Classical astrology, on the other hand, concentrates on different areas of life. It determines special indicators to determine possible situations that may occur in different areas of life. For example, indicators related to marriage, indicators related to children, indicators related to career, indicators related to health, indicators related to financial situation, etc. Classical astrology does not primarily consider the angles that the planets in the map make with each other and with important reference points. It places them in the second place. In modern astrology, however, angles are more of a priority. In classical astrology, it is very important whether the angle is an approaching angle or a receding angle. This approach occupies a very important place, especially in the practice of clock astrology, and has also been inherited by natal astrology. Modern astrology, on the other hand, does not give priority to these. In modern astrology, angles have certain tolerances. In classical astrology, on the other hand, these tolerances do not apply to different angles, but to the planets. In classical astrology, there are no psychological analyses, there are character analyses. But these analyses do not have the depth of modern psychology. For example, in classical astrology, there are no map types, locomotive, bucket, bundle, etc. In modern astrology, on the other hand, they are used to determine the psychology of the owner of the chart or which areas of life he is more attracted to. Similarly, moon phases, new moon type, full moon type, balsamic type, etc., are also the things that modern astrology prioritizes in determining the trends of the chart holder, but they were not used in classical astrology. In classical astrology, the so-called Ptolemaic angles 60, square, triangle, opposite and conjunction are used. In modern astrology, minor angles are also used, especially angles of 45, 135 and 150 degrees. In addition, angle patterns such as T-square, large triangle, Y-December are not seen among the classical methods. In modern astrology, the interpretation of these angle patterns becomes very important. In modern astrology, there is no distinctive feature of a planet being burnt or being in a void. In classical astrology, this is a very important detail. In modern astrology, there is no distinctive feature of the map being a day or night map. Classical astrology, on the other hand, almost at the very beginning of the analysis of the chart, begins to be interested in whether the chart at hand is a daytime map or a night map. This is very important in terms of the powers of the planets. The determination of the Arab points is also primarily related to whether the map in hand is a daytime map or a night map. Pre-modern astrologers, who were periodically included in the scope of classical astrology, did not know Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. In modern astrology, these three planets and Chiron, which we call generation planets, participate significantly in astrological analysis. In modern astrology, especially in the recent period, asteroids also participate in the interpretation, which are also not included in the scope of classical astrology. Similarly, hypothetical planets were unknown. They are also used in modern astrology. In classical astrology, only traditional instruments were used: the 7 traditional planets, the lunar nodes, the Arabian points, the degrees of the full moon and the new moon before birth, syzygy or san, the fixed stars. In modern astrology, many of them are either not used, or they are used differently than they were in ancient times.